What is up, y'all? 9 to 5 Gamers here, and today we are reviewing a copy of Artisans of Splendantvale. This is by Nikki Valens and produced by a gigantic team of people who helped with the artwork, the writing. This is a very unique and interesting game, and I can't wait to tell you what I think about it. But before we do that, let's take a look inside the box and see what it comes with, explain a little bit about the game, and then we'll come back out and I'll tell you what I think. All right, guys, so here it is, Artisans of Splendentvale. I apologize if the camera's a little shaky. I have it set up on a little thing that I have around my neck, but in this game, we have a lot of components when you first open it up. So this is, I don't want to give you too many spoils, but it comes with some character sheets, and these character sheets have different items that you will be erasing and adding to your character and stuff, so I'm not going to tell you about that too much, but each character, let me see, I'll show you this one. Each character sheet, when you open them up, it has like a grid of things you can do, and these, as you go through the game, you bubble in like little things and unlock different abilities and stuff like that. So that is that. I also have a recharge pack. You can actually buy these with the game, or you can buy them directly, I think, from Renegade. They might sell them online. But you can reset the game if you ever want to play it again and go through it. Here's the rule book. It's really well put together. Like this rule book has a rundown of all the characters and everything you do in the game, rules for combat and all this other stuff, and it has bios for all the people that are in the game who created it. But yeah, this is a really good rule book. I think there were some things that weren't very clear and it was kind of difficult to tell. So the rule book isn't, 100% perfect, but I think the rule book did a good job in instructing how the game plays. But yeah, so rule book was fine. It was good. And there was just a couple of places where I had some questions, but ended up figuring it out eventually. This is the action book, so whenever you're playing this game, you're going to go through scenarios with action scenarios where you'll go into combat and different things like that. I won't spoil too much about the game, but it does have a visual reference. It talks about, what all of the symbols mean, what is difficult terrain, elevation, pits, and impassable terrain, things like that. Also, your conditions down here. You can be hit with bleed or hasten, a lot of little different things like that. Anybody who's played Gloomhaven or anything like that will know what that is. I'm going to go ahead and show the first scenario, so I won't show anything past this, so if you don't like spoilers, too late. So the Ruin Raiders, this is the approximate time it'll take you to complete. And then up here, it comes with this little, it looks like a guitar pick made of metal, but what it does is you place that pick above the character, and then you just go down the timeline of whose turn it is to do actions and stuff like that. This tells you the setup. At certain points, more reinforcements will come out. And the goal of the game is to beat all of those characters. And then when you do, it'll tell you to go to your book, which I'll get to in just a second. Down here, it tells you the name of the villain, what their little meeple looks like, as well as how much health, their health threshold. Tells you what happens when they attack, and that when you do attacks in this game, you roll dice, and whatever symbol pops up, that's what they do. And that's basically it. And then this is a look at the map, one of the first maps you play. These little paw symbols will indicate where you place your characters, and then over here you'll notice like a little swirl, and then it has like a 1 dice. So basically it'll assign that symbol to a character, which the swirl isn't on here, so that was probably a bad example, but that one right here, this little triangular one, that is going to be an arbalist according to this. So the arbalists are down here, and so it could be a little confusing at times with the symbols and trying to match them up, but also the cool thing is that they have these dice symbols like number 2, and that corresponds with a very specific ruffian, which is that's number 3. So it would be ruffian number 2. That would be the guy that goes there. Or arbalist number 2, rather, not ruffian. And so that's how the game works, and then all of them get spread out throughout the map. You run around the map, you do combat It's a lot like Gloomhaven. I'd say it's extremely like Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Maps are a little maybe smaller, but yeah, that's pretty much what the map scenario book looks like. Then inside, my game came extremely broken, which I was pretty upset about. This was all shattered when I got it, and some of the boxes got smashed on the side, as you can probably see. But anyways, this little red thing doesn't really matter. It's just there to kind of keep everything in place. So this is the bread and butter of the game right here. Everybody gets their own books, and so as you go through the story, you are going to be reading a book together. And so as you read this book, there's a lot of cool stuff and interactions that happen. Over here, you have just a little box that contains all of the character pieces and stuff like that. It's just an extra box just to hold stuff. This is a card index, and so this is really well produced. I really like the way this came out. So it has the index right there. And then when you open it up, there's a bunch of cards and different things. There's an injury deck and there's story cards. And in there are cards that have some very cool, unique things that I don't want to spoil for you, but they're very, very cool the way that they utilize these index cards, which I'll explain a little bit about later when I do the review. And then over here you have character boxes for each person that plays the game to go through all of this stuff. So like their character, their cards, anything that they pick up, item cards, things like that, goes in their boxes. So when you're ready to play again, you just pull out your box and take out your stuff. I love that about the game, that it's so well organized. And then this cover just is supposed to fit right back on top like that. This broken piece is gonna have to go over here. And then that's pretty much it, man. But I'm gonna go, actually, you know what? Let me just keep this open. So that way, as we are talking back up top, I can bring out some of this stuff and show you some more stuff about the game. So that's pretty much it, man. So that's an overview of the components and what's inside the box. But let's take a look back at up top and tell you what I think about it. All right, guys, so that's an overview of the components. I didn't get to show you everything, but the game comes with some dice. These are really cool dice. They're like a clear pinkish color. The color scheme on this game is very, very bright. So if you're not into the artwork, the game is full of it. But yeah, there's some pink dice that that you roll out. They have different symbols on them for defense, movement, attacking, which is like this little POW symbol that you guys probably can't see, but there's a little POW symbol. There's a boost icon that looks like that, and you also have this wild. A wild can be spent as anything, and then there's also a boot that is for movement that you can use as movement or as a boost. And so the dice are pretty good. They're great quality. They're not bad dice at all. The dice system is actually pretty interesting. I'll talk about that in a little bit. A couple of other things I want to show you is the way the meeples look. So it comes with a big bag of meeples, and these meeples, these are like the smaller ones. And so you get these little, I don't know if it'll focus in on that. Each meeple is, this is like a little lizard meeple. If you notice on the bottom right corner, it'll show like the little dice number, which is pretty interesting. Like this one's number 1, so then if I grabbed a different one, this one would be number 4. It's pretty interesting. The meeples, I think the artwork on these little screen printed, I think they're screen printed wooden meeples. These are really nice. Those are the smaller units. We got the larger units in this bag that are pretty interesting. I don't want to spoil too much or anything. I don't know if there's really much spoilers, but these just look really cool. And this one's number 2. You can see it in the bottom right corner. And so it's pretty interesting. These, I love how the artwork on these. I love these meeples. They look really nice. So that's the meeples, the dice. It comes with bookmarks. It comes with pencils, but you could always just use your own stuff for that. And then this is an interesting part of the game that I think I would like to bring up is the combat. So the combat is weird. So each character is going to have like one of these little dials. I thought maybe that this dial was going to be used for each individual character, but instead it's used as mobs. And so the enemies are grouped as mobs, and there's one dial that keeps track of all of their health. And so each enemy has like a threshold of like maybe 5 health, right? And so what happens is when you do an attack against one of them, you're kind of attacking all of them at the same time. And so what you would do is you would just shift this and say, let's say that their threshold of health is like 5, they had 2 damage already on them, then somebody attacked for 5. You would go up to 7 damage, right? I do 7 damage to the to that specific enemy, and then because it goes over that enemy's threshold, it will go down to 2 because I'll subtract the threshold or something. So if you don't like doing math, that's one thing to keep track of. It's an interesting way to track health. I've played Gloomhaven, but I used an app, so tracking the health was pretty easy with the app. So I don't know if Gloomhaven had that. I remember they had this little square disc and you would put damage markers. It's a weird way to track health. My wife hated it, and she was just like, why don't you just put 5 health on there? And I'm like, yeah, but then if I attack the other ruffian, the one that's the opposite of the one you're attacking, how do I keep track of his health? And then the symbols just match up with the mob type. So it's an interesting thing. I think the combat I thought this was okay. It's a little weird, but once you get used to it, it's not that bad. It's not like, it doesn't take away from the game at all or make the game bad. I thought it's pretty interesting. But yeah, that's what comes in this box of components. Then you have your own individual component box, which I'm not going to go and show you everything, but it does come with, this was something that we found confusing at first. It comes with 2 meeples for your character. One of them's like a rubbery texture, and the other one's like screen printed wooden. I don't remember if this is supposed to be like an eraser or something like that, but I just keep them both in the box just in case. But yeah, you keep all of your cards and stuff inside the game that you get in the game, all the items. I don't want to show you too much for that character. That was the character I'm playing as. And then each character comes with their own unique book. And the cool thing is that as you're reading through this book, it's going to have specific sections as you read through that will say, oh, something is happening. That text appears in everybody's books. But then it'll have points with a symbol that belongs to you or another character, which means that it's that character's turn to read. That text doesn't appear in everybody's books. It only appears in the book of the person who is that character. So there are unique things that my character would say that you wouldn't even know if you were reading somebody else's book. Which leads me to another point that I want to talk about this game. You have to play this at 4. Now, I know that sounds bad, like you have to play it at 4, because I'm pretty sure you could play it with 2, 3, or 4 players. But the thing is that you don't get the full idea of what's going on in the game, because there's so many points where all the characters interject and say things. Some of that dialogue is kind of meaningless, but sometimes it's actually really, really important, and there's some really cool interactions that you can have with other players. I know this is kind of bordering on spoiler territory, but like with this character, I remember like each character is very unique. Like for example, Javi, he's an artificer. Like his job is to create objects like prosthetics and things like that. He actually has a prosthetic arm that you can see on here, and that prosthetic can take different forms. It can turn into a blade and a whole bunch of other cool stuff. So this guy can sense like stuff from objects. He can kind of like see like visions. And there was a point where I touched something. I'm not going to tell you what it was that got touched, but there was something that got touched in a room, and then I started to read what happened in my mind, and I have this vision and something happens, and it said, the first character to react, you guys only read this page. And so it creates a unique interaction between 2 players. So that player got up from the other side of the room and went next to me, and we were just reading together, and we were just sitting there reading and going, oh my gosh, yo, that's crazy. And the rest of the group is just like, tell us what happened. It's like, but it was a unique experience between us 2, which was pretty cool. So I like that about the book. The book is really one of those like choose your own adventure where it's like, hey, do you want to open up the door or do you want to go down the hallway? If you want to go down the hallway, read this page. If you want to open up the door, read this page. But the way they do it is just so meaningful and so cool. And the text is very, 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 very rich. Whoever wrote this did a really good job in writing these adventure books. Each character gets their own unique book. And also inside the book, there are little maps, little illustrations. I don't want to show you them because I don't want to spoil anything. But these little maps, as you go to the map inside the book, it's an illustration, it has numbers on it that you can investigate. To investigate the number, you have to go to that page, and so you'll see, and then one of our people had said, oh, should we go to number 23? Number 23? Who has number 23? I'm the only one who has number 23 in my book. That's weird. Okay, so why don't you do that? And so that's a unique page for that individual to go to so that they can check something that happens that only they can see. Little cool moments like that. There was another one where there was a trap door that was like number 73 or something, and you couldn't even see it. And all this stuff that I'm telling you is just about the first scenario, so don't worry about anything crazy happening. But yeah, there was like a 73 hidden on a floor tile that none of us had seen, but the only way we found it was because they investigated something that said there was a trap door somewhere in the room, and it was really cool, man. Like the interactions, that's part of the adventure. That part was so well balanced too, because reading the books and looking at the illustrations and going to pages and flipping and all of that story took just as long as the action scenarios. Like, we sat there for a long time just reading. So that's another thing that I will say about this game. If you do not like reading, you will not like this game, because it is a ton of reading. And a lot of stuff to keep track of. Cool thing is that you have this map that keeps track of your story for you. And so in this map, you have a ton of places you can go. But then on the back, it has like a little thing. And again, this is we have a reset for this, so that's why it's pretty much empty. But this right here is we keep notes of everything. The one complaint from my wife was that there's just not enough room to write notes. Like, this thing tells you to write notes like every 5 seconds. So you either have to write really, really small, conserve space, but she found herself as the log person to just get exhausted trying to write all these little notes. Overall, the combat is pretty cool. You just roll dice and do checks. So, basically the way the game would work is that when you start the game, I think you roll 8 dice. I don't even know if I rolled 8. I think I just rolled 7. So you'd roll 8 dice, and then those 8 dice are going to determine what you're going to do for your turn. Then on your turn, I'll pick that up later. On your turn, you roll 3 dice, and you add those dice to the pool. This is a shared pool of dice, so everybody, when they want to take their moves, they'll say, well, I'm going to move, and then I'm going to boost my move, right? So that would be one action, because boosting doesn't count as an action. But I want to move 2 spaces, but if I boost it, I can move 3. Or I'm going to attack, and then I can attack, and the regular attack does like 2 damage at first, but then you start doing crazy damage later on as you start to get new abilities and level up your character. But if you wanted to attack, you use the POW symbol, and then you can boost the attack. And what that'll do is, that was the part that was kind of confusing, is because every time you attack, you always roll a dice for crit. If you roll the attack symbol again, you get a critical hit, which does an extra damage point. So you're doing 2 damage, and then you roll a crit, that's 3 damage. But if you boost the attack, you add 1 to the numerical value. So if I'm doing 2 damage and I boost it, now I'm doing 3 damage. But when I roll 1 dice for crit, because of the boost, I can roll 2 dice for crit, which that wasn't even a boost symbol, so I know that was confusing. But yeah, if you had a boost symbol, you would boost not only the attack power, but how many dice you roll for critical hits, which is pretty cool. All the characters have passive abilities or can unlock passive abilities. I know that Javi, for example, I'm just going to Javi because he's the character I was playing as. He has a passive ability called Augmented Strength, which means that when you roll for a crit, you normally would have to get a hit symbol in order to get a crit. But it says that if you roll a plus symbol, which there's a plus symbol on this side and 1 on the boot, those also count as crits. So he's like 3 times more likely to hit criticals. That's his passive, the Augmented Strength. Just a cool little ability that he has, but nobody else has that. Everybody has like a unique ability. One girl, her character is small, but the way they spell it is S-M-O-L, so it's small. So we made a lot of jokes about that. But the small characters, they can literally fit in spaces with enemies or other characters. So, that's pretty much the way the combat works. You just kind of fight and beat stuff up. It's kind of like a Gloomhaven. And then I'm assuming you'll find out more about some other things you do during the combat scenarios and things like that. So, trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. I think that's pretty much it. I will say this: the game has a very diverse character group. So, for example, all of these characters come with on their boxes and on their sheets. They all have like their own pronouns. As a person who is, like I'm married, and me and my wife, as we played through this game and we were going through like these pronoun things, it was kind of difficult because we don't find ourselves using these things on a daily basis. So the reading was kind of difficult as we're reading, and some of these characters have pronouns that we're not used to using. They, them, Zer, things like that. So that a lot of the game they went a great deal to kind of be inclusive to that. That was one of the things when I opened up the box. It was like these were characters that I just really couldn't identify with because they didn't seem like me. And I think that was kind of the point of the game. They wanted to create something that was a little more open to others who identify with these things. I'd say that if you're a person who doesn't identify with that, you are going to feel kind of like, wow, this isn't for me. Which for me, I know there's a lot of varying views on that. So if you're the type of person that's not into that, you're obviously not going to enjoy that game. The book has a lot of the pronoun things, so if you don't normally use those different pronouns, it's going to force you to have to use them a lot. Now, if you're wondering, is this game just kind of pushing that as the main idea of the game? No. A lot of that stuff exists in, as a matter of fact, for like Javi, for example. Javi's, a lot of that stuff you read about, it's in these cards. So if you've ever played Gloomhaven, these cards are basically, what do you call them? Man, what were they in Gloomhaven? Like the city cards. So like after you complete a mission, you go to the city and then somebody will be like, hey, so-and-so, you read the card and you say, there's a guy and he's stuck in a well. Do you want to pull him out? Yes or no? It's kind of like one of those things where their backstory is put into little cards like this. And it's pretty interesting. A lot of the like backstory, like for Javi, his character is gay, and he has his partner that he visits and stuff. All of that happens in those side cards, and so it's not. And I'm not saying that if you're trying to avoid stuff like that, you're not going to be able to avoid it, because I'll be honest with you, if you don't read those cards, you miss out on a lot of items and things like that. You have to read through them and get the items. So it's a part of the game. It's not a massive part of the game. So like the main story isn't about finding identity, stuff like that. That stuff is kind of just overlaid over what I see to be kind of a really cool game. I haven't fully finished the game, and I want to, because it just, like, that world just kind of sucked me in. It was really, really cool. I really like this game. I think I'm sitting at like an 8 out of 10. I think it's very solid. I think it's a nice contender for Gloomhaven. I would say the cons against it are that it's not going to be for everybody, because I do know that it's just the reality that not everybody is into the pronoun things or the sexual identity. If you are, then this game will speak perfectly to you, but if you're not, you can feel a little like an odd man out. Like if you're just a average straight person, you probably wouldn't identify with a lot of that. Which for me, myself, I don't really find myself identifying with a lot of this, but I have no problem with that stuff. I know that stuff exists. It's not like it's obtuse. If you have kids and you just aren't into exposing your kids into that stuff at an early age, I'd say this is probably more age appropriate for students who are a little bit later on in their teens. And if you just want to avoid it altogether, then avoid it altogether. I didn't know that going in when I bought the game. I bought it on Kickstarter, and I had no idea that it was going to be have all of these things. But like after playing through it, I'm like, I know it's not that big of a part of it, so it doesn't bother me as much, but I know that it would be one of the main things that would make people either buy it or not buy it. I think it's a solid game, and I think it's honestly, I really enjoyed playing it. I think my score was teetering between an 8 and a 9, but again, because I haven't finished it, I'm not 100% sure if I would give it a 9 just yet. My score could go lower to like a 7, but I don't see myself, no matter what happens story-wise, I don't see myself going down past a 7. I may be going to a 7 if it doesn't end well, or if it's, you know, just gets odd. But for the most part, solid combat. Everything works well. I love the organization. It's so easy to get to the table. It's not difficult to table this game at all. The index of cards, which I didn't really even get to, oh man, that was not smart, which I didn't even get to go through, but there was some really cool stuff in here. A lot of these cards, one of the things, I don't know if it's a spoiler, so if you're not, again, if you don't want spoilers, these cards have items, objects on them, but also there's a lot of cards that have stickers for armor that you gain, and you can put the stickers on your character. There's stickers that go over your abilities to augment them and make them stronger. You can get new passive abilities that are stickers that you put onto your paper. So once you use them, you can't use them again, which is why a lot of people would probably, if you're planning on playing it again, to get this Artisans recharge pack, which comes with 8 quick change cards, a Rosha companion card, 76 sticker cards, a world map, and 4 character sheets, which are these. And yeah, so it recommends being ages 14 and up. I would agree with that. I think that you should be at least 14 to play this. It can be a little complex, and but for the most part, I think this is a solid game. My score could go up or down depending on it. I think right now on BGG, oh man, I wish I had prepared that score, but I think on BGG it's in the 8 range. I'm not sure. I know there aren't a ton of people who have the game yet. But if you do see it and you are interested, it's a very good game. I really enjoy it, and I think the characters are really cool. I think like the way their powers, their backstories is very, very interesting and compelling. But again, some of the things that go against it are the artwork. Some people just can't do the bright artwork and wouldn't like something like that. Also, has a lot of pronoun stuff, so if you're not interested in that identity-specific stuff like that, I could see that being a pull away if that's you. Also, the combat can be a little wonky at times, but it's still pretty solid. I'd say it's a good game. I think that I could maybe recommend it. I think it would be situational to recommend to just about anybody. I don't think everybody would enjoy this game, but I like it, and man, it is so well produced. It's hard not to love how well produced this game is, and just looking at the artwork and everything on these books are incredibly well done. Illustrators, you guys did a good job. Writers, you guys did an amazing job. Nikki Valens, she's done a ton of great games, and this is just another one to add to her list. But that's it. That's a review of Artisans of Splendantvale. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments section below. And tell me your thoughts. If you've played it, let me know what you guys think of it. But I really enjoy this game, and I'm going to play this to the end, unlike some of my other campaign games that have yet to finish, like Lord of the Rings, Robin Hood, Ultray, which Ultray is not even campaign-based, Gloomhaven. So many games. That's what I'm scared of, is that I'm not going to finish this game. But I think right now with my game group, we have enough of a push to get through the whole entire thing. But it's just like schedule-wise, trying to get together with people. It can be tough to try to get 4 people together to try to play this game, which is another knock against it. But yeah, you want to play this with 4, but you don't have to, but it's better. Trust me. Anyway, that's it. Hope you guys like this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys later.